Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Big Kris Live, the live stream, and then the podcast. You can see Ashley MacIsaac on the screen behind me, and super excited for this episode. And we'll get into all the backstory and the reasons why. Obviously, the Celtic music genre. I play the bagpipes. We've talked a lot about that on this podcast, but we're finally going to get into the jig and reel idiom maybe at some point. I don't know how deep we're going to go, but just don't forget to subscribe via audio after the fact, available in Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And of course, our podcast network sponsor, DeanBlundell.com. And we're streaming right now via DeanBlundell.com's Twitter, also their YouTube, and on the Big Kris Radio Facebook fan page. Ashley, good afternoon. Oh, you're all masked up now.
Did you just call me a jig and reel idiot?
No, idiom.
Oh, idiom. Sorry. I can't distinguish what people say now when I don't have my mask on.
Come on. Everything's all muffled though.
But that's one of the weird things about masks is actually at least for me, my peripheral vision changes. It's weird because it doesn't cover your eyes.
Yeah.
But when you have this little area here, this close, a black line or, blue line, whatever color mask you're wearing.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm getting out of my truck or something and I go to look, sometimes I have to look twice because I have stage eyes. I have the eyes of being on a stage and knowing if I move 1 inch too far to the left, I might fall off what I'm doing type thing. So I have very directional vision and so masks, this whole new thing, everything is weird. And so I guess I misheard you. I thought you said it was a jig and reel idiot, but it's the idiom you were talking about.
Idiom, yes, yeah. Now, Ashley, I have the same problem with the way the mask fits my face. I've got a very fat face, and so often I find the mask is riding up into my eyeballs. And when I look in the mirror, it doesn't look like it's in my eye, but it feels like it's in my eye. That's the problem I get with the masks.
Do you ever have friends or family try and dress you up at Easter as an egg?
No, not this year. However, now that you've suggested it, I'm sure someone's going to want to have their way with this thing up here.
That's perfect. I'm just looking here and seeing you. I'm going, you could paint that like a Fabergé. It'd be so cool.
Yeah. Well, we're having a baby this Easter. So my birthday is
Congrats.
on Good Friday. I'm turning 40 on Good Friday. And then on the 11th of April is our due date for our baby daughter. And there's a little bit of a drama that I'm going to get your advice on a little later on the podcast as well. I'm going to bounce some ideas off of you. But first, I wanted to ask you, do you ever get sick of people just randomly walking up to you and saying, "Hi, how are you today?" Do you get tired of that?
No, not at all. And you know what? Not so many people do, to be honest.
Really?
I've been very fortunate in one sense. In Canada, when you have any type of notoriety or fame or celebrity, you're not always that recognizable. Unless you've been a superstar around the world, like an American celebrity may be. I think it would be very hard for Mick Jagger to walk into a club and not get noticed.
For sure.
But even when I had the most press and media going around about me, and it's been 25, 26 years since those really beginning stages, but I've continued to maintain some type of press and media around my name and image. It just never was the case. And it makes me think about one time I was doing a show at, I think it was Massey Hall. And, I'm inside Massey Hall, sold out audience, standing ovations. I walked out after the show was finished from the upstairs on this long staircase, the fire stairs that goes down to the side of the building to walk downstairs to have a smoke. And at that point, that's where everybody's coming from the show afterwards, walking down that street. And as I was walking down, there was a man and woman, fairly well-dressed man, young 40s, and very stylish lady. And they were just chatting, and he said something, and he coughed, and he hawkered, and he just sort of looked towards me, and he just went and spit on the ground and kept going. Because typically, I go somewhere, I look I'm the homeless guy on the street. And so on a stage, they're applauding and it's wonderful and we're supposed to, and it's Ashley and we paid $67.50, and outside, people don't recognize me. So I don't really have that issue. And unless I have a pair of sunglasses on and a fiddle in my hand, it doesn't happen very often.
Well, then let me ask you, hi, how are you today, Ashley? How are things?
Well, the normal response for me to that question when I have been asked is fine, thank you very much, which was the follow-up record to that I put out about 2 years after that Hi, How Are You Today record.
Right.
But I'll answer you directly. We are talking now on your podcast because it's a time where people are meeting this way through Zoom phone calls, and because artists haven't been publicly out there very much. There's been a very small amount of media attention around what has happened with the industry and the part of the industry that I'm in. And I think that's rightful because always in the past, in many countries, ours included, arts have been considered non-essential.
Mm-hmm.
So if you consider certain countries like, let's say Russia during World War II, they kept the Bolshoi theater going while the bombs were dropping. They understood the importance that art is to their culture, and cultures that have done that have lasted the longest. Canada respects its culture, but it's never been front and foremost when it comes to how to tell our own story, other than maybe through the CBC, which eventually had gone through its own phases of, purchasing episodes of Wheel of Fortune like the rest of the world. So the generality of art being non-essential has meant that people haven't talked so much about it. And to answer your question, hi, how are you today? It's fucking shit. How about that?
You're not alone. You're not alone.
Right? The reality of it is, and that's why I'm not doing much press, probably because I couldn't control myself. I've stopped myself for months of speaking where I don't just blow up and say crap about crap, because there are real problems that people are dealing with. People are dying. People are getting sick. People are being forced to stay in their home because they have cancer and they can't go out because of their compromised immune systems. There are real problems. But in reality, the sector that I'm part of, the arts sector, that includes, venues, technicians, people on the stage. I make my living as a live touring artist. I have for many, many years.
Yep.
And like most artists, I'm not a business person. I'm an artist. I play music. I grew up in the woods playing the fiddle in Cape Breton, managed to take the leap and was lucky to have that successful record, and have for now 25 years made a living off it. It doesn't mean that I'm a smart business person, so I don't have a bankroll of money sitting in my bank. What I've done instead is when I get money, I live and I continue to go on to the next show and then put whatever extra money I have into my next project. So when you do that and all of a sudden you're faced with a scenario like we are now, which has been 11 months, 12 months, going to be 13, 14, 15, 16.
On and on and on. Just dragging.
With less than 5% of my normal yearly income. The agency I work for, they had to lay off 95% of their agents because there wasn't live shows.
Yeah.
So many venues that I had booked last year on the very first day, March 11th, when everything got called, all gigs were canceled. I maintained one show last year.
My mom was at your show last year, by the way, in Almont, Ontario, last summer.
No, I didn't do a show in Almont last summer.
Did you not? Was it the summer before, maybe?
That was 2 years ago.
Oh, right. Okay. She was there.
Right. So last year, the only show I did do was a Celtic Colors event out of Cape Breton, which I had to fly to Nova Scotia. Actually, I drove to Nova Scotia, so it took a day and a half. And then I had to isolate for 14 days.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had 2 days of rehearsals, and then I had to drive back. So basically it took me 18 days to do one show, and there couldn't be a public audience for it at the time. So I haven't done any real things like that, other than by December, I went online and opened up a personal Facebook account to try and shill fiddle tunes, where I would sit and, take my pen out, take a piece of paper and write out a tune, invent a tune, and perform it for people. And, doing that for $100 a pop, because, you can't really charge more than that. So the reality is, to your question, and I said a vulgar response, it's not a good time. It's not a good time.
Yeah. And to give people the background too, I mean, even leading up before the pandemic, there's also been a massive change in how the record industry works, right? I mean, there used to be album sales, and then
there is that. That's an old story at this point, though, now, because we're talking around 2005, basically post Napster, when iTunes and such was invented. That it became obvious, certain large acts like Metallica protested in the beginning.
Yeah,
You've seen the South Park episode, But the reality is that by that point, I basically decided that any record I made that cost a lot and was a full production, I'm not a Madonna putting out a record. I like to say I'm not a big celebrity. So anything I put out, the chances that it hits big means that you have to have 50 million streams to make any money. And that's very small chances. It's like when lightning strikes. It struck for me with Hi, How Are You Today? But I basically make albums now as an advertisement for the music that I'm touring and what I'm going to put out next. Yeah. So, I might spend $50,000 that I've managed to finagle up to make a record, but I don't necessarily expect to make 5,000 back off of 0.001 cents per stream.
Well, and that's sort of the point that I was getting at, is that all musicians had left was the tour, was the live show. And that because the albums were taken out from underneath, the album sales stopped becoming a thing because of streaming, and now the pandemic, it's just one thing after another, man. And
we can't complain about technological advancements.
That's true.
I won't.
That's true.
I won't. Right. I mean, this is the reason that we're here able to talk to each other. So, and I also never have a problem with the notion that music is something that people love. Now, me, I'm an artist who has been clear and said for many years, I do this for my living. That's what I do. Done it. I decided when, I could have been valedictorian. I dropped out the last month of school. I joined a band. I knew I was good at music. I seen how much money I could make at that point, and I took a chance at it. And so I'm not going to complain about the fact that I've managed to eke out a really good career. But you're right. For people who are just starting out right now, very hard. That one-hit wonder thing of having something go viral, it is very rare. If you hop on a skateboard and drink some cranberry juice, maybe you get a free truck. But there's a lot of great artists out there.
That's good.
Well, there's a lot of great artists out there who play very great, but the only way that they could continue to hone their craft was by performing those small cafes and clubs. Now, some of them are starting to open, and in fact, I may have a few gigs next month. I'm told I can do 50-seat venues in a certain part of Ontario. I may go out and do a solo show. Doing it solo, there's just maybe enough money for me to consider going out and doing it when I pay my agent, my manager, and my costs, etc. Otherwise, not enough money to pay a side musician. So I've offered a show where I'm going to tell stories about my experiences with UFOs, ghosts, and sea monsters, and play solo fiddle, something interesting for people to come out of their house, but very small. So that ability to be in front of a live audience, first off, I do miss this, but knowing, as I said, it's not an industry that's considered essential, even though when prime ministers are elected, they sit back into their home and they put a glass of wine and a record on of, Faith Hill and listen to their music and go, okay, everything's wonderful in life and I'm fabulous. And I'm going to make a decision now about whether or not I'm going to cut 150 million or 160 million from this budget. People don't seem to understand how relevant their happiness is, even though they know it. So there's been a lot of great comments from people online saying, that music is so important. We have to support our artists, But the very exact same people also have to think, like I said, which is, but don't go out there anywhere and don't go to any concerts and don't do anything and please stay home because people are sick. Okay, I get it. So we are a necessary evil almost at that point for people. And the way that they can get it for free online makes it next to impossible to monetize it in any true sense of the word. And myself, I don't go by the notion that artists should be asking for donations. To me, that is a pandering that is, in the sense, making us charity cases and beggars. And I stated it from the get-go when I went onto Facebook in the beginning of this year. I don't want donations. If I have something to sell you, you can pay me and I'll sell it. It's my business, but I'm not running a charity. I'm not a church. If I want to run a charity, I'll start a charity service. That's not what I'm doing. I'm still hanging on as a musician. So it's been very difficult for someone like me who is very business oriented in one sense and thinking that it's the business I do. In another sense, being an artist, so I don't really care so much about the business side of it. And then in the third sense, dealing with the reality that people can get stuff for free. So just like them, well, I'm going to put on my Android box and not pay for my cable bill. I get it.
Yeah.
You know, why are you going to spend money if you don't have to? So it is a harsh time. This is a long answer to a question that was, hi, how are you today? Let me finish by saying, rather than with a vulgarity,
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's better. That's better than, you know what, the where we started. We moved through, you know, the stages of grief and anger, and now we're on the other side to
No, that's for your listener and for your podcast. You know, the blunt assessment in the beginning is really where I'm at.
I get you, man. I get you. Now, you're off Facebook, on and off Facebook, eh? I have a love-hate relationship with it as well.
Well, like I said, you know, I used it for shilling fiddle tunes, and
yeah, I like that though.
The one problem is the accessibility. You know, I and many artists do our best to present ourselves in a way that's down to earth and is open, because we're putting ourselves on the line. Our music is part of ourselves, and we then present as friendly and connecting a way to us as we can. And of course, with Facebook, you have Messenger, and I'm not so smart. I'm 46. I don't know all the stuff. So when I all of a sudden post something, and then all of a sudden there's 700 messages come through to a messenger, and I've just posted, please do not send me messages, I can't help but look at them, because I might have, you know, 500 messages with 300 of them being from 75-year-old grandmas who I feel bad when they send a wave, to at least acknowledge them back. So I set it up so that it was personal in that way. And occasionally you get wackos. Occasionally you get people that cross the line and then imagine that they have a really strong connection, and they're relying on you. So you respond once, and then if you don't respond a second time, I've seen this happen in live, though. It's not just an online thing.
Yeah, it's an in-person thing, too. It's the obsessive mentality.
It's in-person.
Yeah.
It's in person. I've been in Alberta, and I've played where Maritimers come up to me, and I've spent 15 minutes with them talking afterwards, and they were drunk at a club, and do all I can to be friendly, and then say, okay, we got to get in the van. We're leaving to go to the next town. It's, 1:30 in the morning, and we're leaving at 6 in the morning. Oh, you're too effing important to talk to us now, are you? Yeah, people snap just like that because you've been personal with them, and then they get slighted. And I don't like that element of the online connection to people, is the chance they can get slighted, more so the chance that they are just weird or wacko and come up with imaginary fantasies and then start believing something, which is something in my career I've had to deal with in a media angle, because personally, having been out as a gay person at a very young age in the 1990s, when there really wasn't anybody else in Canada talking like that, there was a lot of negativity surrounding that from certain angles of press. So throughout my career, I have the distinction of probably being the only Canadian artist that doesn't mind, because it's part of my career, playing the yellow press version of things with the media, because I have to work with them. And so, I can look at Globe and Mail articles that ask questions and say things that are just extraordinary and like really foul. And then I can look at Globe Mail articles that are wonderful about me, in the same breath. So that nature that's around me, I have to be cautious of how interpersonal I am in my conversations. I am very professional, but being a professional fiddle player from Cape Breton, that means you got to be charming and you have to be down to earth.
Well, that's what it's all about.
When you're charming and down to earth, that leaves a problem all of a sudden, that people all of a sudden can cross a line, right?
Yeah. You talk about, you've got, everyone's got different sizes of personality, Ashley, and I've got a darker, sort of sinister side to me that I'm dealing with something in my life right now. I'm going to throw this out to you. So I'm going to make this short story long, but my wife and I have been renting a house here in the GTA for the last 4.5 years. And we've been renting it. And we're, of course, 4 or 5 weeks away from having a baby. And our landlord knows this. they decided, because the real estate market has heated up, that they're going to sell our house. And right now it looks like we're going to have a 3 or 4 week old child, and we're going to have to pack up and find a new house to live in. Which
you better get moving quick.
Which doesn't sit well with me, because I sat on their doorstep 7 weeks ago. Well, at least 7 weeks from the time that they had given us notice that they were going to sell the house, and I cut them checks for the whole year. And I said, "Why didn't you tell me then? Why didn't you tell me in December? I wrote you checks for the entire year." And they just said it's their right to sell the house, and of course it is their right to sell the house. But I don't like that they're doing it.
I got two questions for you. Is there anything in eviction rules that prevent them from evicting people due to COVID?
Yes. Well, that was the tricky thing, you see, because we were in lockdown in our region and there's no evictions during lockdown. They let us know on the first day of not lockdown, the first day of red zone.
Right.
I know. I'm like, okay, I'm onto your game. I see what's going on here. I would have appreciated a heads up. And so I've got a real surly angle to everything now that's proceeding, like them bringing people through our house now for showings. And who knows what they're dragging in, COVID or whatever, right? And anyways, today, the real estate agent's coming over with a photographer, and I want to do mean things. Like I want to. No, you wouldn't. Listen. You wouldn't.
No, not at all. No, I'll tell you. There's something I've learned about when people have their mind set on doing something that they have a legal right to do.
Yeah.
Which I think probably in your case they may have.
They do.
Right?
Yeah, they're entitled. I just think it's in poor taste given that my wife is so pregnant.
There is nothing in the rules book of business that has to do with, all's fair in love and war, right, in business. The fairness of it is I think you can do two things. You can stoop to their level and be unfair, and try and make it difficult for them. But what does that gain you and your wife, who are already dealing with the prospect of having to move and she is having a child? So the anger thing, I'll tell you, revenge is a dish best served cold.
Yes.
So you may not be able to get what you want right now, and you might feel slighted because they are making a move that's very delicate. Again, you got your wife pregnant. You guys are having children. Your real estate agent didn't.
That's true.
So it's really not their problem. Now, that being said, they are creating a problem for you because you are in a scenario where you didn't expect you'd have to move. So if it was me, I would wait. I would use the power of the media that you have and the ability to speak to people. And I would be schmarmy about it. Vulgarity, and I've tried. At certain points, I've tried to lash out to people who are completely, what's the word for it? I want to say maniacal, but,
I like that word.
Self-absorbed people who don't care about what their actions are that affect other people. Sort of psychopaths, right? When psychopaths are involved in my life, and I've had to deal with it a lot. First off, I'm in the entertainment industry, so a lot of people in the business side are fairly psychopathic, I'm driving my Jaguar to work. I don't care if we owe you money. You've done the work, but we're not paying you. Have a nice day, asshole. That type of vibe of people.
Yep.
So when I've dealt with people like that in a manner of, okay, I'm going to show them what a Cape Bretoner can be like. Okay, I'm now at your office with a chainsaw. When I get that vibe,
you're speaking to me now, Ashley. You're speaking to me now.
When I get that vibe, I don't often find that the end result is not what I want. It's because I may get the end result I want, but the process and the action to get to that is one that leaves me as a human being feeling like I stoop to the level of these piss ants.
Right. You're right.
And so a smart person, I think, said the idea, like I said, revenge is a dish best served cold. So when it comes to it, I'm sure there may be 3 people in the future from your actions that have done you well by choosing not to go crazy on it and to just profess what you feel about this realtor or whomever it is, the buyer. The buyer is the seller is the seller. But let's say you go, when George Bush went into war in Iraq. He wasn't going there because of what happened with the people over in Afghanistan and 911.
Yeah.
It was you know what? You didn't hit me, but you're a cousin of the person who hit me, so I'm going to punch you to really piss off your cousin. So, I mean, it's a real nasty way to do things, but that's maybe how you have to look at it. Maybe this real estate company that's going to be a part of this sale, you prevent 3 sales for them in the future that they otherwise would have had.
I see.
You know that that's going to affect somebody else's in a scenario where they're trying to sell things. So it's continuing a negative thing. My best advice is try and bite your tongue. If you can find a new place to live in this horrific time, to try and find a place while you have something that's set up that's perfect, that you like, your home, and you're being sold from underneath you, great. If not, you just got to suck it up, buttercup.
All right, buddy. All right. But I did want to serenade the photographer with my bagpipes today. I did.
Well, that's not... I hate that people think that's annoying. My God, I love it. I used to have a bagpiper who I would make sure that at 6 a.m. in the morning, he'd get up and he'd play outside the hotel room to wake everybody up. Because there's nothing I love more than bagpipes in the morning.
Yeah, I wake up, I brush my teeth to bagpipes in the morning. Of course, I play them all the time.
It's a good idea, though. But, if you are going to play bagpipes for them, make sure if you have a little speaker set up that you can mic them so they get louder.
Oh, good. Yeah, we can definitely always find ways to make them louder.
Listen, good luck to you and your wife on your newborn.
Thank you.
And
yeah.
I hope that you solve your scenario with your housing situation. I could tell you some of my housing situations I've dealt with over the years. I was burnt out of one home by the locals that included the local counselor, the person who eventually bought the land, who I didn't know, who had likely paid off the person who set fire, who was my caretaker.
No.
Right up to the county officials, who then suggested they would spend up to $3 million in legal fees to prevent me from getting back my home, that was then obviously a proceed of crime to these people who got the grant, that had applied for the grant before my house burnt down, and had hired architecture people to design a new property on this great piece. Like, the whole thing was salacious and horrible, but because I was Ashley MacIsaac, they put on the front of the newspaper, Ashley MacIsaac investigated for arson. So, like, I lost $450,000 in that insurance deal because they just wouldn't pay me out and I had to settle. So shit happens.
Yeah. Well, I also was going to decorate the house with Christmas decorations just for the photographer, but, I'll let it lie. You're right. I think your lessons are good ones here, and I knew you would speak reason to me.
Once we get off this, I'll tell you a couple of things that I've done where I was out of anger to try and make a point to people. And I can tell you that places were decorated, but they weren't decorated with Christmas decorations.
Ashley, that's the promo clip right there for this whole podcast, by the way. I see you sparking up there, and
I just did this for you because I want you to have a sense of calm, and I know that you like to smoke pot. I don't smoke pot very much. This is probably my 4th joint this year, and I have it on me all the time because I like it for a moment to relax. But my lungs are, after having smoked for so many years, not really conducive to being around pot, so I like to eat it.
Oh, okay.
But I figured for this interview, I would light a little one up.
God love you. And I was going to bring up that, now that I know that you eat it, because I remember the day of legalization, CBC flashes to Cape Breton, and they were going coast to coast, the first person in this town to buy legal weed, the first person in this town to go buy legal weed. And there was Ashley MacIsaac. I believe the headline was the first person in Cape Breton to buy legal cannabis.
Actually, the headline that went out across the world, which I read in the South African Tribune, and I read in the China Daily News, and I read everywhere, was Ashley MacIsaac, quote, "My new dealer is the Prime Minister."
You're always good for a quote.
It made a lot of press, right? And I did. I stood in line for that because I've never done that for anything else. I don't have any Apple products. I never stood in line for Star Wars. I didn't do any of those things. And people have stood in line for my concerts for years. So I thought, okay, pot. I, for so many years, have enjoyed cannabis. So I'm going to go. I flew to Cape Breton and went and waited outside for many, many hours. I was the only person waiting in line for like 10 hours. So they're like, God, you're crazy, Ashley. You can go get pot over the neighbor's house. But it was a momentous day for people who have enjoyed the pleasures of cannabis
and the medicinal effects as well.
Well, as I say, the pleasures,
Yeah.
be they medicinal or otherwise, they have now made it no longer a crime to do that. Hence, this is why, and it's the first and only time there's ever been an interview where I've actually lit a joint in.
Wow. We've made history here on the BKL, Big Kris Live. Love it. I heard a really funny story about you, Ashley. Now, I played the pipes, and I've only recently picked the pipes back up in the last 4 years. About 4 years ago, I started again after a long break. And of course, you get real obsessive about the bagpipes. It's a real obsessive hobby, and I just dove straight in hard. And through the last 4.5 years, I've taken a lot of different lessons and workshops and different things. And one of the lessons I learned was involving a story about you. And I'll recount this story now. Christmas time, a guy named Matt MacIsaac. I don't know if you guys are related or not. Anyways, he's a very well-known piper.
I don't believe we are, but I have an idea who he is. I think he played with Natalie McMaster for a while on the road. If that's the guy, yeah.
Matt MacIsaac was telling a story about him being back home in Nova Scotia or Cape Breton. I'm not sure exactly. And they went down, him and his friends. They said, "Oh, Ashley's playing down at the pub. Let's go down and see him." And he says, "Great." So they went down, and he says, "You proceeded to get up on stage and you played Jingle Bells for about 25 minutes solid before launching into your set. And it was almost to the point where the crowd was getting semi-aggravated or like, what the hell is going on here?" And
not true.
Not true?
Definitely not.
The lesson was the lesson of anticipation. That didn't happen?
No, I've never played any particular tune for 25 minutes. And if I can tell you that I have, on many occasions at shows, gone out when there was a nice grand piano, and before the show sat there and played like lounge music as people were walking in who they don't have a clue who I am, as they say. They still don't recognize me, and I'm on the stage, but I'm sitting at the piano. I'm just playing do-do-do-do. I've done that, and before shows I have used anticipation in a couple of ways. One of them is that I've played a thing before or at the start of a show. At the holiday time, I wouldn't have played Jingle Bells for 25 minutes. I may have played 10 or 15 different carols. A little.
Oh, maybe that was it.
Waiting to start. But typically, when it comes to anticipation in music and live performance, it's something that you don't have online. You just press play, and there it is.
Yeah.
So you try and build it up, and it can actually go the opposite way too. As I've gotten older, I like to jump the gun. So that's a complete opposite way to slam people. So somebody is introducing me on a stage and they're saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, he's from Cape Breton. He's had this many records and blah, 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 blah." And it's going to keep going on. Before they can get a third of the way through, I may walk right out onto the stage and be there. And they don't even see me yet. And the audience will see me and an applause. So an early entrance will work and a delayed thing will as well. The most well-known piece of music that I've recorded, which was from Hi, How Are You Today, that does it with a slow air called, well, we call it My Cape Breton Home, on a track called Wingstock, where I start out with a piano piece for a long time, and then it builds up a little bit, and then I go into the fiddle. I opened my shows when I was out there promoting the early days of while I was recording Hi, How Are You Today with that track. And that's all about anticipation. So I get where you're coming from. Yeah.
Well, anyways, it was a great lesson, and I never forgot it, obviously, and maybe the story was exaggerated. You know how the telephone game works. But it's so funny you mentioned that song, Wingstock. I remember listen, man, I was born in 1981. So I was 14, 15 years old when that record came out, right? And so, big fan. I'll just say it. And my stepbrother had the album, and he, as a joke, our parents, my stepdad and my mom, we were having dinner, and they always like to put on, like, remember those big old CD disc rotators with like 6 discs, and they would rotate around and it would shuffle and it would shuffle. Anyways, they had all this lovely piano dinner music and whatever, and he programmed it to shuffle to that song Wingstock, where it started off with all the nice light and airy piano work, which blended in perfectly with everything. And then all of a sudden the fiddle just comes in, and the bass and the drums and the pounding, and my stepdad stood up. He didn't know what was going on, man. It was the best.
You know how that track came to be is quite an interesting musical story. When I was 15 or 16 years old, I was at a friend's house, a guy by the name of Neil McGuinness, who was the older brother of one of my schoolmates, Rossi. And Neil had a real unique sense that, and he still does. He grew up in a house with fiddle, but he was about 3 years older than me, and we're like '80s kids, but he was really an '80s kid. So grew up with WWF and American pop culture, and he liked that, but he also liked the Celtic and traditional musics he heard. So he had his father's collection of things, and one of the things he played for me, the first one was Fogarty's Cove by Stan Rogers, and said, "Ashley, you have to listen to this music. You don't know it." And then all of a sudden, I don't know anything about playing fiddle tunes other than playing fiddle tunes. And here's this track that opens with. And I'm going, wow, that's a different way to play the fiddle. And I can see how that would work with songs. So that was one. The second one was this band called Stockton's Wing. Stockton's Wing is a band from the UK that is the hippest and coolest when it came to doing edgy rock and Celtic music. Mm-hmm. And I had never heard them, and that was the track that became what I call Wingstock. I went out on the road, as I say, after high school. I decided not to finish, joined a band the first week of the band performance, the last of June. They said, "Ashley, we're going to start our shows now. We've rehearsed for a few days, but we want to feature you on a track. Can you do something with a band?" I had never done that before.
Wow.
And because I was just there to play mandolin and keyboards and fiddle backup in a country band. And a guy by the name of Ron Hines. I gave them this track from Stockton's Wing. They learned it. I went out that night in a club called The Studio in Stephenville or Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and owned by a guy by the name of Pete Griffith. And we'd done the show all night with Ron. He was singing the great new songs. And then he was walking off stage and giving me the chance. Then I was going to be featured for this tune. The band that was playing for Ron were the hottest band of Newfoundland as far as side musicians since a long time. They played in the wonderful Grand Band. They played in multiple rock bands. A guy by the name of Paul Boomer Stamp, heavy drummer, great keyboard player named Wade Pinhorn, unbelievable guitar player and bass player. And I hit that fiddle tune, Wingstock, and the audience went wild. They went super wild. And we're talking young people that were out to see Ron. So, 19 to 30 somethings in Corner Brook on a Friday night at a concert drinking that are watching Ron Hines, their star guy, be back in town singing his country songs. And we hit that tune. That became the opening piece for all my shows afterwards. That's why the management that was at that event, because they were Ron's management, decided to then say, "Ashley, you need to make a rock record. This killed it." That was the inception right there.
Of everything that followed. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's, well,
and it was given to me by Neil McGuinness, as I say, to listen to, and that I had something on a cassette I could pass over to these people, say, "Here, what about this?" I thank him graciously and royally for his musical introductions to me. So anticipation.
There it is again. Yeah. Hey, now that I see you got your fiddle out there, I got a little something here too. I'm going to play a tune. And this is a tune that I wrote. This is an original. And this is... Are
you supposed to put a mask on when someome's playing a wind instrument?
Yeah.
Now, like
See, I'm going to be blowing it right into your face there. Sorry, Ashley. Okay. Yeah, that's good. There we go.
That's what she said.
Or he, Oh. Yeah.
Something like that, right?
Yeah. So that's a tune I'm writing for my daughter right now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And what's your daughter's name?
Oh, that's a secret. I can tell you what my daughter's...
So you're saying this is for the yet-to-be delivered daughter?
Yes. That's right.
Wow, that's very cool. So Dad is writing a piece of music. Now, your unborn child heard the bagpipes in the belly?
I sing to her almost nightly. I don't know if
Yes,
you're.
but singing is not bagpipes. That wasn't my question.
Well, she sometimes, yeah. I usually play in the basement, and my wife will be upstairs in the kitchen, and the sound gets through. And she does.
Awesome.
She kicks when she hears them. I played in a live stream contest for bagpipes a couple of weeks ago, and we sat there and we watched the contest back on the live stream, and my wife was just saying, "Oh my God, she's kicking like crazy," and I'm like, the name is Blank's debut jig, and that's it. So
awesome.
yeah, so
well,
I'm naming it
everybody
Jig.
is anticipating and waiting to find out what the name is. So maybe you should have a contest. Have a contest on your podcast to your people to see that whoever can get closest to it will eventually get a tune written by me for their name.
Oh my God. All right. If somebody on the comment section, or you want to DM me or whatever, if you have a guess as to what my baby's name is going to be for April the 11th, if you guess it correctly, Ashley MacIsaac will write you a tune, and it'll probably be better than my tune, guaranteed.
No, man, that was a great tune.
Thanks, man.
I enjoyed hearing it.
Thangoing to be a 4-part jig, but yeah, I didn't want to bore everyone.
Now that I've said. There's a lot of ways you can go with that. You could write 4 parts for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've already got 4 parts. I just didn't have the balls to play them all.
Hey, all that mattered was that you had to make the little girl appear. So good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Also, I just noticed, like, even you just picking up on the riff of the tune that I wrote, you even picked up the fiddle. You can play it twice as fast as I can on the fiddle. That's the thing I've always been jealous of. Pipers, there's only so fast your fingers can move on those holes. But with the fiddle, you can go so much faster.
That's because it's 2 separate mechanisms. When you're doing tempo on a chanter or any wind instrument, you're using both hands. It's like a percussive instrument, just like a piano, right? Mm-hmm. That's how you get speed, is by this. Whereas with instruments that are strummed or bowed, this is one tempo, but then the other one is your motion of this part of your arm, right? So whether you're strumming or you're bowing, so there's a much different sense of what you use as a musician, particular muscles to make speed in one sense. That's why it's so hard to play wind instruments. That's why I'm so blown away by people who play bagpipes, because you say you can't play fast, but no, you can play fast. Lots of pipers have played with me. I had a very well-known one named Scott Long, and he'd never miss a beat, So there's a real skill to using both hands to playing music, for sure.
Yeah, I will say, there are plenty of pipers out there who are better pipers than I am that can play at those tempos, but they're much more accomplished, like Matt MacIsaac, or like this Long guy you mentioned too.
Matt's a pretty brilliant piper, yeah.
Well, he has a band. He's pipe major of the band in my backyard here, and so before the COVID and everything, I was practicing with their band, and what
is the band that he's a pipe major for?
St. Andrews College Association, which is St. Andrews College.
Is that St. Andrews out of Toronto?
Aurora, yeah, just outside of Toronto, yeah. So anyways, he's I practiced with that guy for an entire winter, and let me tell you, that was a wake up call. It was a good school for me to attend. I can tell you that.
So listen, we've been chatting and being free and talking about things and going off in different directions. This is like a fun phone call. I'm happy to be part of your podcast.
Thanks,
if there's any hard news facts that you want to ask, or you have people in a comment section, I don't know if you're running that right now.
No, I can't see it.
Yeah. So, if you want to ask me anything, let's get to the meat and potatoes of my career. And then I'll say, we'll finish with a tune.
Oh yes, I'd love to finish with a tune. All right. You want a hard question? I wrote a couple of ones down. Ashley, I think about it now, looking back at the real rough patch in the late 90s, where like you say, the Globe and Mail was writing shit, and there was a lot of, just mixed reviews on press. I look back on that now as they were trying to cancel you in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of the cancellations came about or they were trying to cancel you because of your lifestyle. But it's so funny, because if you flash forward to 2021 and you came out flamboyantly in 2021, if anyone tried to shame you about that, they would get canceled. Isn't it interesting to see that paradigm shift?
I think the reality is, as a Canadian artist, as I say in the 90s, who spoke about being part of a small minority of people, the notion that politics and civility creeps through at a slower pace for the masses than for the minority at any point is not something that's new. It's fairly general, the way I see it. So no matter what angle one has to present themselves, when they become a public figure, be it by choice or they're presented, without their choice. Say somebody was, like the Menendez brothers, like some crazy story or something that you hear about because, they did something wrong. They all sort of get lumped in the same kettle of fish, whether it's for a good thing or a bad thing. And to me at the time, there was never, ever, and still isn't, anything wrong in the approach that I took, which was to be direct about my sexuality. Mm-hmm. And so frankly, I don't look at it through the lens of right now, 29 years later, of looking back and saying, even when there was negative or whatever connotation of printing or press about me, that I took it as being much merit and still don't, could have been affected by it. Yeah. And lots of times in a way that made me push farther with the process of trying to have people pay for my fiddle tunes. I mean, when it all comes down to it, that's what I do. I'm a fiddle player. Yeah. So if I'm out there in the press and I'm trying to get media and I'm also trying to talk about something I think that's a liberal idea and it's gone down a certain rabbit hole. So I'm really going to push the envelope a little farther if I want to, even if it's one I'm in control of and deciding what to do. Then anything that's been said, it's been very tough, to put it this way, to press cancel on this.
Can't keep a good man down, right? I like it. Okay, I got another one. This isn't a tough question, but second to last question. When was the last time that you wore a kilt? Because I always remember the back of that album, Hi, How Are You Today? And then there's you wearing the kilt, and you got the big plaid jacket on too, looking all heavy metal. When's the last time you put a kilt on?
What I have here in my hands, since St. Patrick's Day is coming, is a black watch tartan kilt for a leprechaun. It's a leprechaun's kilt. It's very small, but they are small. A wraparound type of some sorts of thing that they call a kilt, which some people still just say is a dress. I didn't wear them a lot.
No.
And that's why. I enjoy it, and I did in the early parts of my career have rentals at points, like for the photos on Hi, How Are You Today? And also have had my own made, or specifically was given one where I was part of a fashion show and I had to wear it, that sort of thing.
I see, okay.
So not very often. And the reason is because I'm not a piper.
Yeah, right.
I love the kilt.
Yeah.
I love the kilts. It's not a kilt, it's kilts. So I love the kilts. And I would wear them every single day if I really thought I deserved that honor. And, as a Scottish descendant, that's one side of me. I also have French. I probably have First Nations as well. The wearing of a kilt isn't a mandatory thing for me as a fiddle player. It is for you as a piper.
It is, yeah, unfortunately. And it's so funny because I'm the one who's like, can I just go do this contest in my jeans? But you're right. There is a certain tradition to it that I do appreciate. But
and you know what? We all build new traditions. So when it comes to clothing, I've been part of that zeitgeist of what a kilt was. When the internet started really out there in 94, 95, 96, I was friends with one of the very original Microsoft workers. Mm-hmm. So she had her stock split like 4 or 5 times in those years right then and became one of those instant Microsoft millionaires. But for a while, she traveled with me while Hi, How Are You Today was touring because she liked my music and she was traveling with a compadre who was a super fan, who loved my music and traveled everywhere with me, and her name was Sunshine. So Sunshine, who had been a Jerry Bear lover, she traveled as a Grateful Dead head for years. She hooked onto my tour, and this other lady who traveled with her was at Microsoft. One of the things she said to me was, "You don't know anything about the internet, Ashley, and I'm going to do something. You can see me doing it right now. And whatever I'm doing to your name is going to pop up forever. So I'm going, okay, cool, awesome, right? Thank you." And for that reason, there's a real connection to being online, and I had been in very early websites about wearing a kilt and people who are kilted in the world because of those few images that are out there. I love it. And if anybody ever wants to make me one and send me one, I'd always wear it. But the last time is your question. And the last time would have probably been within the last 4 years somewhere.
It's not
where
bad.
There was a kilt.
That's a good kilt ratio. That's not bad. That's not bad.
Most people can't say they've worn, if they're men, a dress in the last 4 years.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wear one pretty much every second weekend of the entire summer when there's no pandemic. So,
there's nothing more manly than a man in a dress.
Yeah, well, I worked on my calves. I mean, the rest of me is...
You know what I'm saying? I love them. Like they're tough. People don't get it because when they think about how the concept of a man in a dress, you just think about like drag queens,
Yeah.
The reality of all those old Roman centurion type outfits and Scottish kilts and things that drape, that give you the freedom to move and have those, as you say, work out your calves. That's why pipers wear them so well, because they're marching all the time. And it's the best item of clothing for marching, obviously. So, good on you.
Thanks, buddy. Lastly, this has nothing to do with Celtic music, jigs, reels, anything.
Has anything else been?
Well, I guess not really, but except for we had a little jam there. But it's just a Nova Scotia thing. Are you by chance into the mystery of Oak Island?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay, good.
I knew about it before it became the great History Channel series. But, at one point when I was 16, this fellow who I worked with at one point later and then had to beat up because he couldn't work for me anymore because he was bad. He had told me about the Sinclairs and, this story. And he's one of these creative types who thought it was fascinating. But I never really followed it from the sense of, other than I knew it was in Nova Scotia as a kid, had heard about it, and didn't really have much connection because it's another part, it's like if you live in Kingston or you live in, Aurora or something, like they're two different places. And so who knows what is, the local lore
global mystery. Yeah. Right.
Right.
Gotcha.
So that's sort of what it was like as a Nova Scotian. I was in Cape Breton. That was far away from me. I was never really down in that area.
Yeah, because it's way on the other side there. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's an interesting story, and I like it, and I'm into watching it on TV. Will they ever find anything? I don't know.
Yeah,
we can hope. Well, that's an answer. I guess they already have. They have found stuff.
They found some stuff.
Where it got there. I mean, there's all kinds of Mystery Channel shows about Welsh people I saw recently that were over in North America in the 1200s. Wow. So, the latest conversation I had with somebody who's from Nova Scotia, who's a First Nation guy, he said to me on a Facebook Messenger video call here maybe about 5 weeks ago that he himself knows of a particular connection in a certain area to long since past forgotten travelers who traveled there and set things up, in a local story in that area. So the notion of 1497 that we all get growing up in Cabot and afterwards, and, in Canada, that's one thing. But there's obviously people could get in boats and they could get in the water and they could travel. And why is their history written? Maybe not. Maybe only the local clans in a certain part of Italy or Scotland or wherever.
Oh, Norway, Vikings.
Talked about it amongst themselves, right?
Yeah.
So I'm into it. But there's a lot older history than that there. And this guy was pointing those out to me. One of the very obvious things in the Mi'kmaq, the crest, the emblem that's on their flag, that's like a crescent, like an upside down and hammer and sickle. There's this sort of stuff that's European. And, this stuff have been images that have been used since centuries and centuries and centuries, probably before the common knowledge. So who knows what's buried out there? I know you got a tune buried in you. I got a tune buried in me.
Let's do it.
It's hard to play together on Zoom because obviously the timing issue. But I'll make a tune on the spot for you. And like I say, don't forget to whoever the winner is, let me know. I'll write a tune in their name.
Okay. Here we go. This is a pleasure.
You would like a pipe sounding tune?
If you like, but whatever you fancy.
I'll make a pipe sounding tune off the fly.
All right.
There you go. You can
Yeah.
play it on the pipes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can. Ashley MacIsaac, everybody. Thank you so much, Ashley, for being on. And you're welcome back anytime, man.
Listen, we started out the interview and your podcast talking about how the industry is. And I'd just like to finish with whenever you have the opportunity out there, if you're watching this, to go see a live performance.
Yes.
Things are changing. People are getting vaccines. Most people in Canada are wearing masks. When the opportunity arises, don't be scared to get back out to those local bars and to support the venues. I know you all want to go out and enjoy yourselves. Musicians want to and need to perform for you.
Couldn't have said it better, Ashley. And I'm looking forward to like everything that comes. I hope there's a boom for live entertainment for everyone involved. Well,
at the very least, when the guy shows up there today to sell your house, make sure that you're playing a good tune.
Okay. Ashley MacIsaac, you're a gem.